What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a brand new football news video, and in this video we will talk about the huge thing coming from Uefa's meeting where they have effectively taken the null and void scenario off the table. So that means that one way or the other the Premier League will not be null and void, it will not be cancelled, it will either resume and finish in a regular season, or it will be resumed and finished in a playoff format. In terms of the playoffs could determine who gets relegated, who gets the Champions League places. But Liverpool's title, it looks like it's not under serious threat at the moment. So Liverpool will be crowned champions and they fully deserve it. But also, what do you think about the Dutch government officially suspending all professional football until the beginning of September, and also the Dutch FA basically cancelled the Dutch season and they haven't awarded the league title to either Ajax or AZ Alkmaar. Ajax were in first place in the Netherlands, but only on a better goal difference. They were on the same amount of points as AZ Alkmaar, who are having a historically good season in terms of their own history. This is their best season in many years. And they also have beaten Ajax in the second to last game before the season was suspended because of the pandemic. And also, it would have been grossly unfair to award Ajax the league title in the Netherlands because they were only ahead on goal difference. They were level on points with AZ Alkmaar. But what is very interesting is that Ajax still gets, in terms of the first place finish, they still get it and they will qualify for the Champions League group stages, while AZ Alkmaar, who are only second on goal difference, will have to play in the Champions League qualifiers. And also, UEFA's meeting means for Champions League and Europa League qualifications that basically the access to the Champions League and the Europa League for teams must be based on sporting merit in the 2019 and 20 domestic competitions, which means that you can't effectively null and void the season. Because if you do that, then you won't be able to qualify teams for the Champions League and the Europa League. And that's huge in England because 4 teams usually qualify for the Champions League and 3 teams qualify for the Europa League. So there is no way that the Premier League would null and void the season, considering that then no English team will be able to take part in the Champions League next season. Maybe only Liverpool, because they are the only team who officially are already qualified for the Champions League next season. But I just can't see that scenario happening. But it's very interesting what the Dutch league has done, because they effectively said no relegation, no promotion, which seems incredibly harsh to the teams in the second division who were already well clear of teams below them. I think the first and second team are many points ahead of third, fourth, fifth team. I heard that all the second and first division teams voted, and the majority, 16 of them, voted for relegation and promotion. 9 of them voted against it, and 9 of them didn't vote, or they didn't want to take part in the vote. So the Dutch FA ignored that, which is very interesting, that the majority of the teams, what they wanted didn't get taken into account by the Dutch Football Federation. So obviously UEFA wants everyone to finish their seasons, but it accepts this may not be possible if governments place an official order prohibiting for sporting events like in the Netherlands and in Belgium. Continuing the season creates insurmountable economic problems and risks long-term financial instability. So that is another scenario where leagues might not be able to finish. If the league cannot complete it in full, then UEFA prefers leagues to finish the season with a different format, which suggests possible small playoff systems, preferable domestic competitions restart with a different format in a manner which would facilitate sporting merit. So let me know, guys, do you think this makes sense? Because I think if you can't play football, like if you can't finish the season properly, then how can you have a playoff format? either you can play football safely or you can't. There is no like a middle ground where you can only play just 3 games instead of the remaining 9. So that's why the playoff format doesn't really make sense to me, even though it would be exciting to see the likes of Wolves, Sheffield United, Manchester United, Arsenal, Tottenham play like a playoff mini tournament and decide who finishes in 5th place and gets that last Champions League spot if Man City will be indeed banned from next season's Champions League. Also, it would be interesting to see who wins those playoffs places to qualify for the Europa League. But I think it would be better just to finish the season if it's safe to do so. But at the moment in the UK, there is still not the peak of this situation. So who knows when it will be safe to finish the season. So at this moment, the most likely scenario, if the Premier League can't be finished, then it will be a points per game ratio, and that way you will be able to calculate which team finishes where. And that will be interesting because at the moment Arsenal could finish in the last Europa League place, even though Tottenham are ahead of them. But Arsenal have a better points per game ratio than Tottenham. That would give Arsenal the last Europa League place if the season can't be finished. But that's a big if. I think still the Premier League has plans to finish the season. But let me know, guys, what do you think about all these possible scenarios? What do you think about UEFA saying that you can't null and void the season? You either have to finish it or you have to award the Champions League and the Europa League places and the title on a sporting merit based on this season's results so far. That is very significant. You can't just null and void the season and take last season's results into effect, because I mean it would be so unfair for teams like Manchester United who are in 5th place. They could miss out on the Champions League, and Tottenham could get into the Champions League because last season Tottenham finished in the top 4, but this season they are in 8th place or 7th place and they can't even possibly qualify for the Europa League right now as the league stands, and it would be grossly unfair on many teams. And this is what UEFA said in their statement. National leagues should have the ability to decide the final positions in their domestic competitions, having regard to the specific circumstances of each competition. While the Premier League remains committed to complete the season, UEFA have removed a key barrier to it finishing with no further play, although the legal and commercial issues with television companies, those haven't gone away. And according to various British newspapers, the Premier League are planning on going against UEFA's plans to lose a playoff system. So the Premier League either will finish the season playing all the remaining games in full, or if you can't play football, then they will award the title, the top 4, the Europa League places on points per game table. And at the moment, Man United are 5th, Sheffield United are 6th, Wolves 7th, Arsenal 8th, and Tottenham are only 9th if you take just the points per game ratio into account, because Arsenal have a better points per game ratio as Tottenham, and also because Man City are banned from the Champions League, even 8th place Arsenal would qualify for the Europa League, which I'm sure many Arsenal fans would be happy about. Carragher said in a column in the Telegraph that the season must finish. Clubs who are threatened with relegation cannot be allowed to postpone football's return. But nobody needs to tell Carragher that the health of those closest to us matters the most. And also Carragher's wife Nicola has tested positive for the virus, though she has now fully recovered, thankfully, which is great. And Carragher said this: "I am eager for the games to return, but it goes without saying that nobody wants decisions taken for the wrong reasons at the wrong time, contrary to government and scientific advice. But where football is concerned, I'm also firmly believe this. Although the safety of players, fans, staff and the public is top of the agenda in the decision-making process, sporting integrity must be second in the top priorities. No club should benefit from failure. No club should be punished because they are on the brink of success. That is why I welcome UEFA's statement that clubs will be rewarded for their performance this season based on sporting merit, European participation determined on that basis. And this is what Carragher said, which is, I think, very important. I would like the Premier League and the EFL to follow UEFA's lead and make a similarly clear statement that ensures that, as well as Champions League, Europa League qualification, there will be title winners, promotion and relegation. With that knowledge, the discussion about how and when football returns can focus on solutions instead of obstacles. An element of debate which concerns me is that some of those clubs threatened with the relegation or those with nothing left to play for this season seem to be among the most vocal, suggesting that it is not yet the right time to think about football's return. And Carragher is right. We have seen West Ham's vice chairman Karen Brady's comments on voiding the season, and she initially backtracked before more recently listing the difficulties of remaining. Charlton manager Lee Bowyer said there are too many hurdles in the way of completing the season. And also Carragher noticed the increasingly regular private briefings from executives of clubs either in the relegation zone or close to it, who are claiming that it will be difficult to play behind closed doors because of concerns about players' welfare. Is it a coincidence that those executives and managers whose clubs are in and around the bottom three share the same opinion about either voiding or curtailing the campaign? Frankly, they are just after their own interest, looking after themselves and nobody else. And it's not about the health and safety of everyone. It's about their own agenda, which is trying to get their club not relegated. And it's really, really despicable. The consequence of those statements and briefing, according to Carragher, is that those who deserve least from the current season catch the attention of the media, and what follows is a debate about who is being most insensitive: those who want the season to restart to achieve their club's ambitions, or those who want a poor performance for the last 8 months erased from the record books or having no sporting consequences. In the current circumstances, is it possible for clubs with the chance of a trophy, Champions League qualification or promotion to publicly express an eagerness to continue because of the backlash that will follow? The accusation that they care more about their ambitions than the health of the nation. As a former Liverpool player, I acknowledge that restarting the season helps Liverpool towards the title, but based on the 29 games played, who can honestly, reasonably say that Jurgen Klopp's side do not deserve to win the title? This is the most one-sided title race in the Premier League's history, and nobody in their right mind can tell Liverpool or any Liverpool fan that Liverpool don't deserve that title. It's absolute nonsense. And Carragher also said this, and I fully agree with this statement. Based on the fixtures played so far, I also believe Leicester City deserve Champions League football. Leeds United deserve to get promoted to the Premier League. I see football's current discussions coming down to two choices. Are we working together to determine how we can complete the season and play matches again, acknowledging that testing times are here for many months to come? Or are we continuing to focus on reasons to avoid doing so? How many of the 20 Premier League clubs are keen to get back onto the pitch as soon as the government gives the green light? If ensuring no one else is infected with the virus is the basis for any decision, football cannot reasonably start again until there is a vaccine for this illness. That could be more than a year away, according to scientists. This illness will not be gone by August, when the next season is due to start. Those arguing to end this season to protect the start of the new one know that. So it is a contradictory position to call for the end of this season so we can begin another on time. This illness will be here still in the autumn. The government's chief medical advisor Chris Whitty says social distancing measures of some form will be necessary for the next whole year. We must accept large gatherings such as those at football stadiums will be banned or at least compromised with reduced attendances. Sadly, it will need only one footballer or staff member at a club to be infected and the virus can spread again. And then what? Another immediate suspension, with the Premier League considering a voided season next November, December or January. Would those who are calling for a cancellation today be so vocal in those circumstances? The challenge for football and all sports is how we adjust to an extraordinary new reality and devise a series of coping mechanisms for unprecedented circumstances. Where you stand on that should not be dictated by how much you have to gain or lose by the current season being terminated. When I read reports of clubs suggesting fitting in too many games in a short period of time is unfair because of the older age profile of their squad, I feel compelled to query the sincerity of some of those arguments and those making them. And this is very important. The potential resumption of Germany's Bundesliga on May the 9th could be a game changer for those of us wondering when English football can return. Obviously, there are reasons why German football is already at a stage where clubs feel comfortable allowing players to train and play behind closed-door fixtures. It may be a reflection on how the German government so effectively dealt with the health crisis compared to other nations, or the fact the first cases there were on January 27th. That was 4 weeks before the first reported case in the UK, which should offer an indication of how far behind we can reasonably expect to be. English Football League Chief Executive Rick Perry perfectly expressed it. The virus is going to decide when we play again. If German football restarts as anticipated, the Premier League has an example which can be logically followed. I hope developments in Germany will be watched closely and welcomed with optimism and enthusiasm by all English clubs. We may never get a fully satisfying conclusion to this season, but there is no reason why we cannot get a fair one. And I think this is the most important. Even if the season can't be fully completed, we must get a fair resolution to the season, and that will be only awarding the title, the top 4, top 5, the Europa League places and relegation on what the season so far has has delivered, which is we already played 75% of the season, so you can't really honestly say that awarding promotion, relegation, Champions League places, Europa League places or the title wouldn't be on merit. It's a different scenario in the Netherlands where like two teams top of the table are on the same amount of points. You can't honestly say who deserves the title there, but it's a completely different scenario in England. I think the Champions League places are very clear. There is a clear gap. Promotion from the Championship is pretty simple. Relegation from the Premier League though, that's a big question, because Aston Villa are in the relegation zone, but they have a game in hand. So what do you do with that scenario, that situation? That's a big question. Let me know, guys, how would you solve this conundrum that the Premier League finds themselves in? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. See you guys in a bit.